It was supposed to be one of those weekends you look back on and laugh about for years, just 5 guys, too much beer, and an isolated camping spot in Northern California. The kind of place you only find because someone's older cousin left a pin on Google Maps 5 years ago and swore it had killer vibes. There was me, Mark, and then there was Joe, Caleb, Tyler, and Chris. We were all in our 30s now, jobs and mortgages and the illusion of adulthood clinging to us like sweat. But out there, beyond cell service and paved roads, we could pretend none of it mattered. The trail to the site was barely a trail at all. Mostly deer paths and broken twigs, the kind of hike where you're always half certain you're going the wrong way. But after 3 hours, we found it, a circular clearing hemmed in by tall, whispering pines, with a half-buried fire ring at its center. No one had camped there in years, maybe decades. That first night, things felt good. We laughed, roasted sausages, argued about sports. Joe told the same ghost story he always tells, some nonsense about a drowned boy whose screams echoed down storm drains, and we groaned and threw bottle caps at him. But something felt thin. Like the air itself was stretched too tight, the way it gets just before a thunderstorm. Except there were no clouds, no wind. Just stars blinking high above and the endless hush of trees. Around midnight, Caleb said he heard something in the woods. A kind of fluting sound, high-pitched and hollow, like someone blowing across the top of a bottle. We laughed it off, probably just wind or an animal. Then Chris froze, pointed to the tree line. Did anyone else see that? See what? Tyler asked, gripping his beer tighter. Chris swallowed hard. There was something between the trees. Like a person. But it moved wrong. He was the most rational of us, an accountant, the kind of guy who triple-checks locks before bed. So when he said that, we actually listened. We sat quietly for a while, eyes darting, listening. Nothing but pine needles shifting in the dark. Then the fluting sound came again, closer this time. No one laughed. That's when the fire did something none of us could explain. It dimmed, just for a moment, like someone had turned down the brightness on reality itself. I think we should go back to the cars, Joe said quietly. But none of us moved. We should have. We didn't sleep much that first night. We stayed clustered around the fire, throwing on more wood than we needed, like it could protect us from whatever was out there. At some point, Joe got up to pee behind a bush. We heard the stream hit the leaves, then snap. A branch breaking. Not just a crack, this was a deep, brittle snap, like someone had stepped on something thick. Joe. I called. No answer. Chris stood up fast. Joe, man, stop messing around. Then came the scream. Not loud, not long. Just this sharp, wet yelp like someone had slammed a car door on a dog's paw. We all bolted to our feet. Tyler grabbed the flashlight, and we ran toward the bush. Joe stood there, pale, shaking, pants still unzipped. Something ran past me. Right behind me. What was it? Caleb asked. I don't know. I didn't see it. But it sounded like it was on 2 legs. We shined the flashlight through the woods, but all we saw were trees and shadows. No animal, no broken branch. Chris backed away first. We go home tomorrow. No more nights here. That should have been it. We should have packed up right then and there. But in the daylight, it was easy to pretend we'd overreacted. We were just city guys spooking ourselves in the woods. The next morning, things seemed normal. Coffee, hangovers, bad jokes. We laughed about the fluting sound. Tyler said he'd probably just imagined it from one of the horror podcasts he listens to. Then we found the footprints. About 20 yards from our tents, near a tree stripped of bark from 5 feet up, were a pair of imprints in the soft soil. Not boots. Not bare feet either. They had 5 toes, but they were too long. And they sank too deep for something that small. We didn't talk much after that. But that night, something changed. The fluting sound came back. Except this time, it wasn't one note. It was a melody. It was almost beautiful. Not the kind of beautiful you'd want to hear again, more like the last note of a lullaby you realized too late was meant to put you to sleep forever. It rose and fell like it was echoing off hollow bones, drifting in from all directions. Caleb whispered, "It's not wind. That's not wind." We all sat around the fire, frozen. Tyler gripped a piece of firewood like a club. Joe kept muttering something under his breath. I leaned closer and realized he was praying. The melody got louder. Clearer. Then it stopped. Just, gone. Chris stood up and turned in a slow circle, flashlight beam darting between trunks. That's when we noticed the trees had gone silent. No wind. No rustle. Even the insects had stopped. And then came the whisper. It wasn't from a person. It was too breathy, too dry. Like something mimicking language without understanding it. It came from just beyond the edge of the light. "I swear to God," it said, "Wyest." Chris stepped forward. "Who's there?" The voice whispered again. Louder. Closer. Whist. Tyler flinched and dropped the log. Then, footsteps. Light, quick, inhumanly fast. Something darted between the trees, just beyond where our lights reached. Joe snapped. He screamed and ran toward the tents. Caleb chased after him, calling his name. And then the fire flickered again. This time, it didn't come back as bright. The clearing looked smaller somehow, like the darkness had moved closer. Chris leaned toward me and said, "We're not alone out here, Mark. We've never been alone." I didn't answer. Because I knew he was right. We found Joe in his tent, curled up in his sleeping bag like a cocoon, eyes wide and unfocused. He kept mumbling, don't answer it," over and over. "What the hell happened?" Caleb asked, shaking him. Joe just clutched tighter at the bag. It called my name. None of us had told the others what we'd heard in the whispers. I hadn't even admitted to myself that it said Mark. But Joe was right. It did call us, each of us, in turn, in that strange brittle voice, like a flute trying to form words. We didn't sleep again that night. We sat together by the dying fire, flashlights trained outward, whispering to each other to stay awake. The woods stayed silent. Still. Right before dawn, the fire died completely. And we saw them. Figures. They stood in a perfect ring around the clearing, just beyond the edge of light. I counted 5. Tall, thin, all facing inward. We couldn't see faces. Just silhouettes. Like the darkness had molded itself into watchers. They didn't move. Didn't breathe. Tyler raised the flashlight. What the? The beam hit nothing. Just trees. But when he lowered it, they were back. Exactly where they'd been. Unmoving. I felt something shift inside me then. Not fear, this was past fear. It was recognition. Like a buried part of me had been waiting for this moment. Chris stood up, walking slowly toward them. "Chris." I hissed. He didn't answer. Just kept walking, barefoot now, through the needles and moss, toward one of the figures. The rest of us stood frozen, watching as he reached the edge of the clearing. He stopped. The figure stepped forward. Then Tyler screamed, and the thing was gone. So was Chris. Just, gone. No footprints. No sound. Only the smell of pine sap and old wood. We searched until the sky turned pale and gray. Tyler shouted Chris's name so many times his voice broke. Caleb threw up behind a log. Joe wouldn't leave the fire ring, rocking back and forth, mumbling nonsense. Some of it sounded like Latin, though I knew he didn't speak it. By morning, the woods felt different. Not peaceful, emptied. As if something had taken what it wanted and left the rest behind. We packed up. No one argued. Even Joe moved like a puppet, stuffing his sleeping bag into his pack with trembling hands. We didn't speak until we reached the ridge trail, where the trees opened slightly and we could see the valley below. That's when I noticed something in the tree-line behind us. A figure. Still. Watching. I blinked, and it was gone. We hiked fast, barely stopping for water. Around noon, Caleb stopped dead and muttered, "This isn't the right way." "What?" I asked. He turned in place. "We should have reached the fork by now." I pulled out my phone. No signal, of course, but the compass worked. Sort of. It spun in slow circles, twitching. "Something's wrong," Tyler said, pointing at the trees. "These aren't the same ones we passed yesterday." He was right. The bark was smoother. The moss had changed. And the ground, the ground looked wrong. Like something underneath had pushed up in odd lumps, as if the forest were blistering. Joe started crying. Not loud. Just soft, hopeless weeping. "We're not out," I said. And then the fluting started again. But this time, it was coming from ahead of us. We didn't follow the sound. That's important. We didn't follow it, and still, somehow, we ended up back in the clearing. The same fire ring. The same arrangement of pine trees. The same log with Joe's forgotten lighter sitting on it. "We've been walking for 6 hours, Caleb said, voice flat. "How?" None of us answered. Tyler dropped his pack and started pacing in circles, muttering. Joe sat down and wouldn't stop scratching his arms. I tried reasoning it out, maybe we'd looped back without realizing it. Maybe we'd gone in a circle. But deep down I knew, this wasn't the same clearing. It looked the same, but something was off. For one thing, the fire ring was cold. We hadn't put it out before leaving. It should have still been warm. And there were more trees. Closer than before. Like the forest was slowly closing its fist around us. Joe suddenly stood and screamed. "We're not supposed to be here." He threw his pack into the trees. It hit something. Not a trunk, something soft. We all froze. The thing in the trees let out a low, choking exhale. Not an animal sound. Not human either. It stepped forward. We caught only a glimpse, long limbs, backward joints, a face that was all folds and shadows. And eyes. Pale, shining, empty. We ran. Didn't speak. Didn't look back. The woods twisted. Paths that weren't there before appeared under our feet. I could hear the fluting sound again, now fast and frantic, like it was urging us somewhere. And somehow, against all reason, we listened. We didn't stop until Joe collapsed. His legs gave out on a slope thick with bramble and rot, and when I pulled him up, his eyes weren't focusing anymore. He was murmuring names, Chris's, his sister's, someone named Daniel we didn't know. "Is this a seizure?" Tyler asked, panting. "No," Caleb said grimly, kneeling by him. "This is something else." We were in a gully now, the ground damp and black beneath us. No birds, no bugs. Just the sound of water dripping somewhere underground. The pines above leaned at angles that didn't seem possible. And everywhere, the air felt hollow, like a vacuum just waiting to suck something in. That's when we noticed what we were standing on. Bones. Not arranged, not buried, just scattered. Picked clean, some snapped, some half sunken into the mud. Dozens of them. Maybe more. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. Caleb crouched and brushed dirt from a femur. "These are old. How old? Tyler asked, voice cracking. Caleb didn't answer. Joe was humming now. A strange, tuneless murmur. It matched the cadence of the fluting sound that had followed us since the first night. He wasn't just repeating it. He was joining in. Tyler stepped back. This place isn't letting us go. Then the ground beneath Joe's body gave way. One moment he was lying there. The next, he was gone, sucked down into a sinkhole of soft earth and black roots. I dropped to my knees and reached in after him, but there was only cold, wet nothing. Joe! I screamed. From deep below, something answered. Not in words. In song. We dug for hours. With our hands, our knives, broken branches, anything we could use. But the hole Joe fell into was deceptive. It looked small at first, but the deeper we reached, the more we realized it wasn't a hole at all. It was a tunnel. The soil wasn't normal either. It was soft, yes, but resistant, like wet cloth. It clung to our hands, our wrists, pulled back when we dug too deep. I swear, at one point, something coiled around Caleb's arm. He yanked free, panting, eyes wide. There's something down there. Tyler shook his head. We need to go. Now. We can't leave him, I snapped. Mark, he said, and pointed. The trees. They'd moved. They now formed a ring around the gully, evenly spaced. No breaks between them. No path out. And carved into their trunks, deep gashes that hadn't been there before, were symbols. Rough spirals, triangles stacked within circles, jagged script that hurt to look at. Then, the humming returned. But it wasn't Joe this time. It was all around us. Voices rising in sync from the soil, from the bark, from the air itself. Caleb fell to his knees, covering his ears. It's under the skin of this place, he gasped. We never left the clearing. Don't you get it? There is no outside. I didn't want to believe him. But I remembered the footprints. The compass. The figures. The cold fire pit. And the thing that had taken Chris. I turned toward the tunnel. I'm going in. Tyler grabbed my arm. You'll die down there. I think we're already dead. And then I crawled into the earth. The tunnel narrowed quickly. I had to squeeze through, the roots scraping my arms, the soil pressing against my ribs. It wasn't silent, the earth breathed, a steady pulse behind the walls. Then it opened up. A cavern, maybe 20 feet wide, held together by gnarled roots. In the middle lay Joe. Eyes open. Smiling. I crawled to him, touched his face. Cold. But breathing. I saw it, he whispered. It lives beneath. It wants to remember itself. I didn't understand. Then I heard footsteps above, Caleb and Tyler. Muffled shouting. And something else. A dragging sound. Joe pointed at the wall. Look. I turned and saw carvings, hundreds of them. Faces, symbols, spirals. All etched into root and stone. Each one pulsed faintly. Each one watched me. Joe whispered, they're us. Everyone who's come here. Everyone who listened. It keeps memories. It grows by knowing. I touched one. It burned. Images flooded me, Chris being taken, not by claws or teeth, but by 1,000 whispering voices dragging his mind out of him, unraveling him thread by thread. Above, something screamed. Not human. Not animal. I climbed up in time to see Caleb swinging a branch at a pale, sinewy creature that shimmered like heat above asphalt. Tyler was on the ground, bleeding from a gash in his leg. The trees were closing in. The carvings were now appearing on the trunks around us. Our faces. Joe crawled from the tunnel, still smiling. It wants to keep us. We're interesting. I grabbed Tyler and pulled him toward the path we thought led down the ridge. The forest bent around us. And we ran anyway. Caleb didn't make it. Something pulled him backward, silently, efficiently, into the brush. Not even a scream. Just gone. Joe stopped running. He's accepted it. I turned on him. What the hell does that mean? Joe looked peaceful. I remember everything now. I've been here before. That's when I knew he was no longer Joe. He walked into the trees and was gone. Tyler and I kept running. No sense of direction. Just forward. The fluting returned, no longer a melody, just one endless note, vibrating through the ground, through our skulls, like a tuning fork inside our spines. And then, light. We stumbled into a road. The forest ended like someone had sliced it with a knife. Just gravel, a mile marker, and the world. We collapsed, heaving. Bleeding. Alive. No one believes us. They found Chris's and Caleb's bodies, but not in the forest. In the river. Miles apart. The coroner said exposure, animal predation. They never found Joe. We tell people we got lost. That Chris drowned. That Caleb hit his head. That Joe panicked and ran. They believe us. Mostly. Last week, I got a letter. No return address. Just a drawing, spirals, circles, the symbols from the trees. Inside, a note. You heard the song. You're part of the memory now. The hollow knows you. Last night, I dreamed of pine needles in my throat. And a voice, from beneath the earth. Whist. I don't think we ever left. Not really.